Hello and welcome to Eramis Soccer, match day 2 of the 2024 Copa America. And what a game. Caleb, this was not what I expected.
That's
I
one way to put it.
expected a USA win. I expected a Uruguay win. I expected a borderline ceremonial match day 3 where we could talk about how much we love Bielsa and both teams moonwalk through. They're not quite how things went. Uruguay did their part, beat Bolivia, moved themselves to 6 points, but now USA find themselves in a dogfight after dropping a game to Panama. Needing a victory, likely. I mean, we can only talk about probability, but needing a victory against Uruguay in match day 3 to stay alive, or needing a struggling Bolivia to hold the Panama team that played pretty well. Got to sting a bit, right?
Oh man, this was the CONCACAFiest of CONMEBOL games you could ever see. For the Copa America, we got to see a little bit of what North America brings to the table. Just a physical dogfight from start to finish, where it really didn't seem like there was much tactics on display for the entire 90 minutes.
Yeah. So let's start from the start. Lineup, USA, same team. No issue with that, right? We saw Tyler Adams subbed off at halftime. It's obviously not performance. Stuart Holden cited that he'd played, I think, 25 minutes of soccer in 2 months coming into the competition. So he's obviously getting his legs under him. But it's Matt Turner, who started in goal but would not finish. Robinson left back. Ream making an all Fulham left-hand side of the back four. Chris Richards and Joe Scally at centre-back and right-back. Midfield 3 of McKennie, Adams, and Reyna. I like this 3 balance-wise. It's athletic. It moves around the field. There's quality on the ball. And then the front 3 that was so good against Bolivia, Pulisic, Balogun, and Weir. I wasn't surprised. They played well enough match day 1 to earn match day 2 together. What were your thoughts on the USA lineup?
Made sense to me, exactly what we talked about. You know, there hadn't been anything that looked wrong enough, even with just scoring 2 goals against Bolivia, to warrant a change. It's the first game of the tournament, maybe give them time to get their legs under them. So I think I would have been more surprised had they made any changes to the starting 11 going into this one.
Yeah. Panama, full disclosure, I've watched less than 7 Panama games in my life, but did watch them and enjoyed them in the last CONCACAF Gold Cup that they did so well in. Some big names gone. I know Godoy is gone now. I assume he's retired. But looking through this at names, I remember Mascara, the goalkeeper, Davis, the left wing back, Carrasquilla, best player at the tournament. That was no surprise. That might be it, to be honest with you. I think a couple of other big guys I remember from the.
Don't remember the Torres midfield and center back was always their big names for so long in CONCACAF, helping them get to the 2018 World Cup. But like we talked about a little bit last time, this is very much a team in flux for them.
If that's the case, this is a big result for them, right?
Definitely.
Big result. Because when you change players, I thought this about Italy in the Euros. Like, you've got the Italy badge and it will always carry something. But for me, they won the Euros on the back of one of the best centre-back pairings in major tournament history, in Bonucci and Chiellini. And you take them out, this group needs some signature wins, maybe a win on the road before I believe they have the true steel and belief in that locker room that they had when Chiellini and Bonucci are in there. So, I mean, if you're Panama and this is a new group of players, this is a big night in the evolution of your team. It's in America. It's in the USA against the USA. It's a good USA, regardless of the circumstances. It's a great result, and they need it, right? Because they have lost their opener against a very impressive Uruguay. If they lose again, they're done. And
that's right.
They're scrapping for a point at least to stay alive going into the Bolivia game, which now you got to put them favorites. First minute, the tone is set mentally. Carrasquilla is fouled by Adams. It's a fairly standard foul for me, but Carrasquilla is trying hard here. He's going hard to try and draw that yellow card, rolling around screaming. So that didn't take long to start the mind games and the emotional swings. And it's a lively start to the game. The forward Guerrero gets played behind. Robinson clears. Barcenas with an overhead kick over the bar. It is just a quick, upbeat start to the game. In the 5th minute, USA think they've took the lead, right? They get a wide free kick. Pulisic crosses to Richards. The head is tipped onto the bar. It drops down. Tim Reed kind of toe pokes it to McKennie to finish, and it looks like USA have went up 1-0 early twice from a set play twice. VAR rules it offside. Sadly, I think it is. I think Reem is offside, and he gives the assist. So it's a shame, but like they can't really argue with it.
But that start to the game, that's where I knew that this was going to be an old-fashioned CONCACAF dogfight, just blasting out of the gates. Both teams, I thought the foul on Coco Carrasquilla should have warranted a yellow card, and if that's anywhere in the match other than the first minute, referees go into the pocket. And just the fact that both teams seemed to come out. This was not a tentative Panama that we saw in that first game against Uruguay, where they respected them too much for the first 45 minutes. They were too compact. They came out full of confidence. We mentioned a little bit before, they beat a B team USA squad in the Gold Cup semis a year ago, but it clearly gave them a ton of confidence because the way they set out in that first 2 minutes of the game showed me right away, okay, they are not going to pack 9 men behind the ball. The USA is going to have to deal with their midfield, and that was where the dogfight was going to be set up to go. But if that McKennie goal goes in, boy, is it a totally different scenario to start with.
Oh, very, very different. Very, very different. Speaking of fouls and physical, the 11th and 12th minute, they're eventful for the goalkeeper, Turner. First, there is a sloppy back pass from Chris Richards. He barely looked. Horrific back pass. Turner's a good player, actually. He's really quick off his line to clear the danger. But then he comes to collect the cross, and there's no way the other way to put it. He's cleaned out by Blackman. It's deliberate. He's down for a long time. It looks bad. And the reason I say it looks bad is if someone's rolling around, I'm almost relieved. But he was like frozen, face down. Pretty ugly scene, to be honest with you, and it showed because he didn't finish the game. I can't believe it's not a card, Caleb. I think
it should have been.
Careful as referees, because if you set the standard that this is not a card, people are taking shots on keepers every game because he might drop the next one. I know people think keepers are overprotected, but you don't want the other side of the coin where everyone thinks they've got a free shot like this. And it's almost like an NFL safety hitting the receiver hard, hoping it stays in his head all game, right?
And this is where the discussion around the referee before the game, kind of by both teams, sort of came into play for me. Yvonne Bartone had been made a note, I think, in the pregame buildup, the fact that Panama had some issues with him, that they'd only gotten one result out of like 6 matches that he'd been in charge of for them. So there was sort of some thought against that. But this early decision clearly favored Panama. It has to be at least a yellow card. And I honestly thought we were going to get a situation where VAR would send him to the monitor to see if it was worthy of a red. The only thing I can think that saved him there was the fact that he thought there was contact with the defender coming in there, and that alters his path. But having seen the slow-mo, having seen so many replays, there's no doubt in my mind that was intentional to make contact with Matt Turner, try to put him off his game, because we expected Panama was going to have to get physical in the box to try to win some balls played into the penalty area, knock him down, give a chance for the midfielders to get onto it. And it looked like they were trying to send the message to do just that early on, but that was such a hard landing. I mean, we still don't know if Matt Turner is going to be available for the Uruguay game. Doesn't sound like he broke anything, but the way he came down on his hip and shoulder, that was no protection, no chance to soften that landing.
Yeah, I don't like it a bit. Of all the talk of the referee, and there was a lot, this to me is the worst decision of the game. Just because of the consequence of this becoming a strategy, if you don't be careful. 16th minute, sadly, he does end up at the VR monitor a minute later. And this frustrates me. I can only imagine how much it frustrates you. It's an incident that will define the entire tournament, barring a very big upset against Uruguay. I don't like it from where. I watched the zoom out close, and it looks to me like he's got a little shoulder badge from the defender Miller. That happens 100 times a game. You coach kids to do that. Like, don't give them a clean run. Let them know you're there. Then there's maybe a hand contact. It's certainly not any kind of shove that VAR would do. And Caleb, he's turned around and he's punched him. You can't do that. He's had perfectly normal contact. This isn't even CONCACAF or whatever. It's mentally weak. I do wonder if all this nonsense from Berhalter with the press conference after talking about ref tendencies, I wonder if he's wound his own players up with the referee and what's coming in this game, because this is Beckham 98. This is Rooney 06. This is a player mentally imploding. I don't like it from where at all, to be honest with you. And I think back to the Serginho Dest red. I think it was in Trinidad that really bothered me, where they're winning and he punts it for no reason whatsoever, and he gets the yellow and he blows the case and he keeps going and he keeps going and he keeps going, and then he gets a red. Like, is there an effort from Berhalter that's he's trying so hard for the one in all us against the world, that these guys don't actually fear any internal discipline and consequence? Because if so, maybe that's what this is.
I disagree with you a little bit on it, Stu. Number one, for me, obviously it's a bad moment. You can't lash out like that, like you said. But I don't think it comes from the pre-match buildup. I think this is all a response to the 4 minutes of waiting around to see if your goalkeeper is going to be able to stand back up or if he's going to get stretchered off. I think because of the contact there, this reminded me of an old school, hockey play of, all right, the referee didn't do what he was supposed to do, which was produce a card. We're going to handle this ourselves. And it was just a bad reaction because he felt that little touch in the back and then the shove as he's trying to turn and jockey with him. It's that lash out, just losing his head. But
you realize what he's done to himself now.
Oh, absolutely. Now, every time he's got a big game, you're going to have a defender on there trying to see if he can produce or reproduce the same reaction.
Yeah, and we say CONCACAF this and CONCACAF that. Caleb, Uruguay's coming. Like, Uruguay are arguably worse. There ain't no Luis Suarez in CONCACAF. These boys are not here to play games. These boys will get inside your head. They're masters of legal contact. And for me, if you want to win games at this level, you need to toughen up, man. And the last thing I really hate about the Berhalter talking about ref tendencies, Caleb, the ref didn't send him off.
No.
The ref gave him a yellow, and then the TV monitor gave what was a very obvious red card. But
yeah, and that for me was the only part about it that made the difference between this and a usual old school CONCACAF game, where there is so much of that contact. It feels like throughout what used to be the hexagonal qualifiers and things like that, it's normal. And watching that in real time, it's sort of just innocuous away from the ball. Even you go, okay, well, clearly the assistant referee sees that he's smacked him in the face. That's going to be a yellow card. But in a tournament like this, where you have VAR, where there's so many cameras around, you're not getting away with anything. You have to expect that every action you take is going to have a chance to come back to bite you, and it clearly did for the US here.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of the reaction afterwards. Social media is a terrible, terrible place, and some of the people that were coming after Timothy Weah for, to be honest, it wasn't like he turned around and socked the guy in the face. He made head contact. It was enough to warrant a red card.
Yeah, for me,
he's not the first. He's not the last player to do it. It's hurt the U.S. there, but I thought the way he owned it, apologized to his team in the locker room, and then came out and posted a public apology, shows that he understands the enormity of that moment, and hopefully that's something he'll learn from.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like anyone who's giving it the racist this and just losers. But like, as for has he learned from it? I mean, has he? Like, Dest did it. Now he's done this. When's the next one going to be? This team doesn't strike me as disciplined. Pulisic nearly gets himself off at the end. I don't know if it's there. And I'm not saying it because he's, needs to be a better person, but he needs to be a better soccer player. He does, because soccer is like NBA basketball. It's non-contact, but it is. And there's like, if you're getting rattled by that, I mean, come on, man. Look at some of the stuff his dad played against in Serie A in the 90s. I mean,
Yes.
this is just nothing. But we move on. There was an interesting graphic from Fox. I was surprised they put it up there, but interesting nonetheless, where Panama has a population of 4 million and USA has a population of 340 million. So in your face, Graham Souness, for the
Goodness.
population being the reason, but it's the population of the field they need to worry about right now because it's 10 v 11. But what a response.
Unbelievable response. Quick reorganize, go 4-4-1. And Balogun, my goodness, Stu.
Yeah.
Better than the strike he had in the first game.
What a goal. I mean, all these USA goals are brilliant, aren't they?
Chef's kiss off the post and in.
Three of the tournament, but I think what needs if you're a coach coaching a youth team and you show that goal back, I would show the goal first and then I'd rewind it. Because there's a play I love. There's a ball in behind. It's trying to play in McKennie, and it's awful. It's overhit and it's awful. 8 players out of 10, I believe, either slow down, maybe even stop, maybe wave their arms around a bit. McKennie keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And as a result, he actually pressures the Panama defender into a very poor clearance. Robinson, who's coming up with the press, picks that clearance off, and then it's the interplay with Balogun and then the goal. So, like, I would go as far as to say if McKennie gives up on that through ball, which is completely overhit, there is no goal. And
no chance he was going to let that one go, because that's how this USA team still plays, especially with those engines in the midfield that his legs never stopped moving the entire match. For me, McKennie was the USA's player of the game.
And I love the Balogun story, right? Because lots of players are in spots where their career isn't where they want it to be. And sometimes to really believe and move on, you have to see things in your mind that you haven't seen yet. The believe it when I see it approach doesn't count. And I remember Balogun at Middlesbrough. I was watching borderline obsessively. Kilby wasn't that good. You could see all the talent, you could see all the technical ability. It was something like 4 goals in 20 games. On the cup run against the EPL teams, he was completely non-impactful. He's up front with Aaron Connolly. Neither was very impressive. Chuba Akpom comes in the same team a year later and gets 29 goals. So there's no logic behind Balogun becoming this, setting fire to the French league and then this. And I think that's players need that, because we live in a know-it-all era where everyone just Googles statistics and tries to project that those statistics in the last 2 years of the career will be the next 2. Well, no, this is an example of a development curve. This is a man becoming a better player. This is a man reaching levels we've never seen before. I think it's awesome, largely because he played for Borough, but I really enjoy watching such things. Sparrow was awesome for Slovenia too. Anyway.
And how many times, Stu, have we seen a young player get loaned out to the Championship or League One where the game's just so much more physical and they're not experienced enough to be able to deal with it? Everyone expects them to, this guy's coming from Arsenal. Yeah, coming from Man City, coming from Man United. They should be bossing this place, dominating. But professional football is a tough thing to get a grasp on. For every Wayne Rooney that comes out of the gate, there's just as many kids that take until 22, 23, 24 before they can start making an impact. And Balogun, to me, is sort of looking like he's on that same track to continue to develop. He's still so young. But that I think he's gonna succeed, and I think he'll do well at a big club in the end. Sort of reminiscent for me of the only other time I've seen a young player be brought along correctly, which was Phil Foden at Manchester City, where they could have been shot at him at any point, say, nah, he's not good enough to crack this team. We'll let him go somewhere else. We'll bring him back if we need to. They brought him along slowly over 6-7 years, and look at the reward that they have reaped in the end. More clubs, I think, need to look at doing that with their young players.
I love that story for a different reason. You don't have to cry to leave because you're on the bench.
Yeah.
You can develop on the bench. But here's a little bit of trivia for you. Who do these loan spells belong to?
Say it again, sir.
Who do these loan spells
belong to? Okay, gotcha.
5 games, 0 goals for Norwich. 15 games, 2 goals for Leicester City. 18 games, 5 goals for Leyton Orient. That's the third tier. And then 9 goals in 27 games for Millwall.
Is that Harry Kane?
That's Harry Kane. They're timid numbers.
Yeah.
And now here we are, 44 and 45 for Bayern.
That's right.
I love these kind of examples. Back to the game. Panama.
We're getting a little bit sidetracked here, but
a little
now
bit.
we've got a 1-0 game here, and it looks like everything's going to be fine for the U.S.
It does, but Panama don't take long to respond, do they? Carrasquilla tries a ball in behind. That's a bit overhit, but that's kind of a shot across the bow or a foreshadowing because he picks up possession in a similar spot. He feeds Blackman. There's a bit of a tussle with Robinson that takes the assist away statistically because the ball deflects off Robinson. But then he drills a finish past Turner. And a bit of taste in the mouth. Does Turner save this if he's fully healthy? We'll never know. This is why you can't set the precedent of people hammering goalkeepers and causing delays in the game.
I'll also give him a little bit of an out there too. That looks like one of those shots from in close in the box. I think it just takes that slight redirection off the toe as it gets let go. And so he has to delay his reaction, his dive by a 0.2 of a second, which from that close range, that's enough to squeak it by a goalkeeper. You can see the way that he moves his feet, that he's having to readjust from the way he's attempting to load up his body weight to dive. He's expecting that one to be slightly curled underneath him to the left, and now suddenly, I've got to lean this out, push off both toes, and try to stretch that right arm as far as it goes, and it's just a well-placed shot into the corner.
Yeah, now, speaking as a USA fan, this guy's leveled your goalkeeper, and now he's scored. We don't like this guy, huh?
No, he became public enemy number 1, and I thought Panama was pretty smart for getting him off the field as soon as they did in the second half, because it sort of seemed like his job was done, and the legs were gone for him eventually. But that was a later on moment.
Yeah, and Turner, next time he gets the ball, just drills an interception to Martinez, who was very impressive. Blackman's in again, it's crowded out. The right wing back Murillo sends it across that clears everyone. Collected by the left wing back Davis, who puts it in again. We're under it right now, Caleb. We're a man down. We've lost our lead. Momentum. 65 minutes to go, which is a long time. This feels like we're creaking a little bit here. There's a screenshot. We can't do the clips because of copyright, but if you are interested and you pause the game at 25:10 on the clock, you'll see a real problem because there's 2 or 3 USA midfielders surrounding Carrasquilla without anyone really pressing him or dealing with him. And if you're going to let him get the ball 30, 40 yards from goal facing forward, it's going to be problems. I understand you're a man down with the red card, but there's 3 of them who aren't occupied who could do something about this. Martinez does great work to keep the ball in on the next attack. Barcenas has his shot blocked. Ball goes out to Davis. Sends in a dangerous cross, which Barcenas just can't get to. There's a corner. There's a second cross in. Turner collects the second cross, but we're under it. We got Martinez again in the 35th minute. He finds Blackman. There's a cross cleared behind by Adams for a corner. Martinez in centre mid with the blonde hair, number 6, and Blackman, the goal scorer. These dudes are problems right now. Martinez is constantly on the ball, connecting dots, facing forward, and Blackman's just a pest. He's hammered the goalkeeper. He's scored a goal. He's running in behind. He's Vardy-like, isn't he? He's very aggressive. He's very high energy. I've got these 2 as the biggest problems on the field right now. Where's your head at 35 minutes in, Caleb?
For me, it was all about how things got so out of the range of how you wanted to play this game. The game plan had to adjust. I think that goal for the US goes in so quickly because Panama is trying to reorganize and go from more of a 5-4-1 into a more traditional, for them, 3-4-3. Okay, we've got the man advantage. Let's get our midfield more put together. Let's push our wingers up. And because of that, the USA, who hasn't had time yet to adjust themselves to be more defensively, Balogun gets that chance. Once Panama got reorganized and says, all right, now we're going to run this midfield. which ironically, when we talked in the preview last time, I thought that would be what opened things up for the U.S. If Panama sat back, it'd be harder to break them down because the USA needs that space to be able to run at players with the ball. But now when you're down 10v11, that can't be your strategy. You've got to look to pass. And now the U.S. is in trouble. And they never looked comfortable retaining possession. Part of that's because Panama did such a good job pressing. But the other part for me was the USA just did not look like they knew what to do in the situation. Every time the ball got onto someone's foot, it looked like they were in real time trying to figure out where to go with it next. And as you know, that is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. I mean, we do get a break in the pressure. Wide free kick, one on a break. You are a very good set play team right now. A very good
so they're putting such good dangerous balls into the area.
Yeah. Pulisic sends it in. McKennie heads it wide. Balogun wins a free kick. He's dragged back by now public enemy number 1 Miller, who drew the red card. Then we have a ball over the top to Pulisic. He draws contact in the box. It's not given. We didn't really get a replay. What we saying?
Not enough contact for me to warrant a penalty in that scenario. Again, just the way this game was taken to it by both teams, playing very physical out of the gate, that sets the tone for me. Okay, you're going to have to essentially get murdered in the box if you want to get yourself to the spot for a penalty. I don't mind the trying to demonstrate the contact there from Pulisic, but it never looked like he was odds on to come up with that ball in the first place.
Yeah. Before halftime, we're getting long spells of possession from Panama. It's camped in the USA half. They're not necessarily carving out chances, but they are bossing the game. There's a Davis cross that doesn't find anybody. 45th minute, there's a pretty cynical yellow card for Guerrero. For the barge on Scally. It just is what it is, man. They've come here to get in your face, see if they can get under your skin. They're willing to take the risk of, absorbing 3 or 4 rare yellow cards to do so. Gambling, there won't be a red. You do see this, rather than argue about whether it's morally right or wrong, you just have to accept that people don't win competitions and tournaments without facing this in some form throughout a league or a tournament. I even believe that's true in the college game. We have a free kick won by Balogun. I'll be honest with you, for playing a man down, this is a perfect performance from Balogun.
He played outstanding.
Yeah, he's holding the ball up and taking the extra 3 to 5 seconds it takes to get the numbers there because he doesn't have 2 high wingers anymore because of the red. He's holding the ball 1v2. He's got people on his back. He's winning free kicks to break the pressure. He's absolutely brilliant. He's played in again by Scally. It's offside where he's hit the bar. And for me, if I'm a USA fan, he's showing you how the game could possibly be won. You hang on. You got this dude up front who can do it on his own. You got Pulisic running from deep behind him. By no means are you in the driver's seat, but you are in the game.
You're not out of this by any stretch of the imagination, or at least you shouldn't have been.
Yeah, so half-time. It is a tough one. I've got my ideas. It's a hobby of mine to just start sketching out ideas if I was coaching the team. What do you do here, though? Like, a draw will keep you in the pole position. A win would qualify you. A loss, and we're in some real trouble. You're a man down. You're getting outshot. You're getting outpossessed. What are you doing?
It was interesting to me because, like you said, my thought, though, was a draw is not good enough to get you in pole position. You didn't score enough goals against Bolivia. Panama's got them last. Don't let this come down to goal difference. I wanted to see the U.S. come out and still have ways of looking to score a goal. But those changes at halftime for me, Stu, seemed like it was totally a indication that they were doing the opposite. You take off 2 of your 3 in the midfield. Adams, maybe there's some fitness stuff there. Gio Reyna, I think they just wanted to have a more compact player in there defensively, knowing that they weren't going to have a lot of the ball. But you bring in Carter Vickers, you bring in a more defensive-minded player. You're clearly just looking to pack it in and try to hang on for the next 45 minutes.
It's an extra defender, isn't it? He called it.
Yeah.
5-3-1. Obviously, if you win the ball and they both go up, it's a 3-5-1.
Because you've got Scally, you've got Robinson, I understand.
Yeah.
But when you don't have that much time to hold the ball up, how likely is it that those wingbacks are going to have time to get up into a dangerous area, especially with how quick Panama was to put pressure on the ball?
I'll be honest with you, I didn't like the subs at all. I would have went 4-4-1. We're all biased by what's worked for us, but I coached a Nice game once that I was pretty proud of and used to coach a man down all the time. I remember Wenger doing that. And for me, it's a mathematical equation, right?
Yeah.
And they're coming forward. They're coming in a 3-4-3. So, yes, you're a man down, but in the business end of the field, it's 8v7 to you. And then if they send an eighth man, now you can counter against two players. So it's 8v7. Now, if you attack with like a Robinson overlapping, then you would have your two centre backs and your right backs shift over to be a back three. You'd have your far winger come in. So the only guy you're leaving open is they'd have to switch the entire field to get to him. If you can picture that, it would be the far wing back. You know what I'm saying? So a good way to teach defending is if you pause the video, imagine like a 20 to 25 yard square or circle around the ball. As long as you're not numbers down in there, you're not numbers down. Even with the red card, even if you play high fullbacks, as long as you can press pause on a tape and you can circle the ball and give it a 20-yard radius or whatever, as long as within that area you're not numbers down, then they're going to have to play a pass that takes such an amount of time that you can adjust. So I would have played like that. And the reason I would have played like that is it was very, very clear Robinson could beat them down the flank. It was very, very clear Pulisic could drive the ball. It was very, very clear the ball was going to stick to Balogun. I would have went 4-4-1 with Balogun on his own. But hey, it is what it is.
Well, I'm curious, did you think, Stuart, that any of those more defensive-minded changes had to do with the fact that they've clearly been monitoring Matt Turner and they've gotten the word, all right, he's coming out, so we're putting in a goalkeeper who hasn't played a ton with the back line unit, and is that where the concern is? Just let's not let this blow up totally.
Maybe. Now, Berhalter could turn around and say the way Robinson was playing, they weren't defensive changes. Because if we'd have kept the ball, it would have turned into a 3-5-1. I don't know that he would or wouldn't say that. He was busy talking about the ref in the press conference, which is not interesting to me. I would have been interested to hear that answer. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was tremendously, even a man down, I was tremendously impressed with Robinson. I think he would start for England in the Euros right now. I think there was times he was the best attacker on your team when you were a man down, not just the best defender. It was impressive stuff. And you didn't need to go to a back three. I don't think Carter Vick has played well at all. But it is what it is.
Let's get to some of those moments in the second half, and we'll talk a little bit more about him.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Just quickly, one more sub I want to talk about. Guerrero got himself on a yellow. He comes off for Fajardo. I like that decision. He's on a yellow card. You're playing the home nation. They've got a red. You probably will want to even this up. I do like that decision. But on to the second half. So I'll start the second half. Early corner from Panama, the very impressive Martinez driving forward. I don't think he ends it that way, but so far for me, he's the best player on the field. And then there's a little play where the extra man shows because USA has got their shape. The defender, Farina, he drives forward. He's not getting pressed, but he's not getting pressed because of the man-down system. If you set your midfield to go man for man, but now when the defender comes, you don't have the natural pressure you have with the extra player. Smashes the shot, Hovarth saves it, but it moves in the air and it's much more an awkward deflection than anything resembling a catch. What are your thoughts on the start of the second half?
Just how ugly things started to look very, very quickly. That this became so apparent so fast that, this is going to be white knuckling 45 minutes to try to hang on for a draw or hope for a lucky counterattack that's going to score you a goal. For Horvath, I thought looked uncomfortable as I expected he would coming in there. halfway through a match when you've got halftime where you're listening on the team talk. You get a couple of minutes to try to warm up. That's all you get. And a shot that looks like it's knuckling pretty good. I got no problem with him just hammering that away as far as it'll go to get himself into the match a little bit early on. But USA just looked like they were scrambling to try to deal with all the bodies flooding forward for Panama.
Yeah, an interesting wrinkle for from the commentators in the 53rd minute. USA have a long throw, and apparently these NFL stadiums are 5 yards shorter, 70
They're
yards.
narrower. They're narrower. Yep.
Which narrower, yes, which gives a long throw added importance, right? And a man down against a good team, I think these set plays are important. They're psychological releases of pressure where you're not defending. I would personally be milking a bit while the almost performative, having your big boys walk into the box and just kind of take that energy of them being on the back foot and try and create 5 to 8 of them during the second half, and really realize that open play is going to be different for you. Open play is going to be limited, so we need to be good at these set plays, especially a team that scored 2 goals in 2 games from set plays to this point. Then we got Robinson played in long down wide. Again, I thought he was tremendous. At least some threat still exists. Barcenas straight up the other end shoots off target. Carter Vickers sees his first test from Fajardo, who's another high-energy pest that's got no easier since they brought Guerrero off. Wins a bit of a wrestling match to clear the danger. And then Robinson wins another free kick, defending another attack. I can't say enough about him. I thought Balogun was probably the USA best player, but very closely followed by Robinson. Pressure keeps coming in the 63rd minute. It's actually whistled as a penalty, isn't it? Martinez ball into Barcenas. He drops it down with his chest to the onrushing Fajardo, who's chopped down pretty clumsily by Carter Vickers. Ref gives a penalty. 2 or 3 minutes later, the VAR overrules it. I think it's right to be overruled. I think it's a dive, but at the same time, I think it's a very clumsy and borderline reckless tackle from your centre-back. What do you think?
It's such an interesting encapsulation of where the game of football has developed from 10, 15 years ago to this point. In the past, it's, all right, the ball's gone. It's follow through. That's never going to get called if this is a, 2000 teens match that's happening. But
Fair enough. Yeah.
as things have developed, and we've seen so many where it's okay, it's the trailing foot after the leading foot in a tackle wins the ball, but the secondary foot hits him on the ankle, or it has studs showing. That nowadays, those are the types of things that gets called. I was 100% expecting this to be a penalty. I thought it is clumsy. It's late. The only thing that saves it, like you said, is the fact that the forward is clearly off balance and has already started to go over and is going to fall to the ground before the leg gets there. I thought that was a good decision by VAR to overturn it, but it's such a borderline one that you cannot, I think, argue that either way. For the USA, it's just a break. You get let off the hook, and you're still in this match somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. 70th minute. I think there is a textbook example of attacking a man down. Pulisic on the ball, drives forward, finds Balogun. Balogun's actually 1v2, but he still finds a way to open up his shooting lane laterally and fire a shot away. And then 72nd minute, there's a decision I don't like. Now, I'll preface this. I don't think anyone is above being subbed. I'm hating this nonsense with England. You can't sub Harry Kane when Watkins was fine when he came in, and Kane against Slovenia. Give us for 90 what he give us for 70. But it's not a reputation thing with Balogun. It's that I think he's your best player by a mile. And I think he is playing in a way that suits the situation. So, for example, if England aren't getting in behind and Watkins is faster, you sub Kane for Watkins, even though he's the lesser player. But here, you need a hold-up striker. You need someone to create shots out of nothing. You need someone to be able to link play with defenders on their back, create like everything about it. Like I didn't like the sub. I thought he was doing great, unless there's some energy level thing where they thought he was fatiguing for Pepe. Fair enough. But wasn't in love with this sub. I'm not even saying that because this is the guy who had 5 chances, be Bolivia. But let's see what he's got, right? What do you think of the sub?
I was expecting the sub, and I didn't really have a problem with it at the time. For me, this was a sub that comes because of the fact that your game plan has altered so much. And this was just, watching those first 30 minutes of the second half was so frustrating because I'm seeing no cohesion, nobody stringing together passes. When you do have the rare chance to try and break or look to move the ball through midfield, passes are behind, players are having to stop, reach a foot back to try to drag the ball forward. Now you don't have that extra second that you need when you're man down and you're going against a team that's pressing you so much like Panama did. And they just gave the ball away time after time. Seeing that that was the fact, it became pretty clear the only way the USA was going to score a goal was on a set piece or getting something into the box and being able to lump it. And in which case, Pepe, who didn't finish any of those chances, did get himself on the end of a couple of crosses into the box. I could see that being the swap because you obviously want to get him in there. You can't bring a second forward on in this situation when you're kind of clinging on. So it's got to be top man coming off to make way for him. I agree Balogun played outstandingly, but in the second half, he was left even more isolated up top than he was in those last 20 minutes of the first half.
Fair enough. Pressure keeps coming.
Oh, it
Panama
does.
come again. Murillo ends up drilling a chance straight at Horvath. Martinez curls a ball in behind for Fajardo. He's phased out by Carter-Vickers. It's a good play, but it's a borderline foul. And it seems to me right now that he's making plays, but he always seems to be on the edge of struggling. Nothing's like in control, if you know what I mean, like a John Stones type performance. At this moment in time, I'm not sure if he's playing well or not. I would end the game thinking he didn't play well. Fajardo's impressive. He's made an impact as a sub, just like Pepe did v Bolivia. He's a problem. Then they bring off Martinez, another sub I was surprised at. I thought at the time, is this an all-out attacking sub? Like, we don't want to draw right now. We're out shooting them. We're out possessing them. We're a man up. Is this our chance to advance in the tournament? But then, they put the graphic on the screen that Ayaga's got 4 goals in 30 games. So I was like, yeah, probably not. Probably more a like-for-like sub just for freshen up the midfield. But we enter the last 10 minutes, and it's a fascinating equation because the USA, if they can hold out 10 minutes, they need a draw v Uruguay, assuming that Panama win. Or if they lose, they're in trouble, and they very likely need a win v Paraguay. So it's a big 10 minutes, and once that clock kicks past 80, you're starting to think of the finish line, right? You're getting pretty close. There's a great play by McKennie. He drives to the byline. He looks strong, powerful, fast. He's more athletic than he looks, McKennie. I don't know if it's just his body shape, but he just every now and again he goes into a sprint, and you're like, oh, I didn't think he was that.
Didn't know he had that gear.
Yeah, I didn't think he was digging this cross out. It finds Pepe at the back post. He heads it right at Mosquera. I think it's a chance. I think the guy's like 0 for 6 in the tournament. Don't want to be dramatic, but the camera pans to some crying kids in the crowd, and it's to Pepe. You did that. No, only joke. Is it
such a good chance that he should have done better with the header? He misjudges it, right? He doesn't get himself positioned where he can step into it and head it back across the goal, because you got a keeper coming across. He's got no chance of planting and going back towards that far post. It's just an easy header that way, but he didn't get himself a chance to generate the power.
I always remember Alan Shearer talking about this on a show I watched as a kid. That close in, head it to the goal line, head it down. It's an extremely difficult save to make. Nothing like shoulder height, nothing savable. Head it down. And if he'd have just redirected that low into the corner he was at, I don't think that's a save that gets made. But yeah, everyone's a great striker when they're sat on Zoom, right?
Stu, this is where I want to take a moment to talk about the performance of Weston McKennie, because I think this is perfectly indicative of why he gets my player of the match performance for the USA. Creates the only legitimate scoring opportunity for the USA the entire second half with a good run and a great delivery on the cross. But it's also the fact that he was doing it on both ends of the field. There's one attack that I wish I'd written down the minute number of, where Panama looks stupendous. They've got 3 nutmegs in one attack in the box. You got a pass that comes in, then a little back heel that goes through the legs of McKennie, sets up a shot in the area, goes through his legs again, and Horvath gathers it in, which is why I think it was the Murillo chance. But it's the fact that he's there working. The U.S. was so atrocious dropping their first bank of 4, their midfielders, in with their defenders. Once Panama was getting those balls into the box, they were really just attacking the back line for the USA. McKennie was the lone standout for me, though, that was still not shirking his defensive responsibilities. He wasn't just going, okay, I've dealt with them passing around and forced them to go wide to the wing. He's in there trying to win the ball back and jumpstart something the other way. And for a player who is obviously in the shop window, because Juventus have made it clear that they want no part of him for the upcoming season, guy that maybe had a disappointing loan spell last season, he looks like the type of guy that belongs for playing in the midfield for one of the best teams in the world right now. He really does to me.
I don't disagree. There's a lot of, didn't count them, don't have the stats, but a lot of tackles, a lot of redirections, a lot of loose balls. Impressive performance. I mean, I had him in top 3. I didn't have him man of the match. As you know, that was Balogun, but McKennie didn't play for Middlesbrough, so you never know what the case was. Caleb, we're 7 minutes away from a big, big point. It's the 83rd minute, and it's a goal. We've got Karaskia dictating play almost like a basketball point guard. He chips it into Murillo. It's half cleared. It falls to the sub. Ayaza, he puts a cross in, and Fajardo finishes. So 2 observations. One, I would like to apologize for Mr. Ayaza for my assumptions about his ability to make an impact in the attack. And 2, this is terrible from Carter Vickers for me.
Yeah.
When you're teaching centre-backs, again, everyone's aware of the space behind them, but when you're defending crosses, lateral movement's important. It's the 83rd minute. It's 1-1. We need a point. Fajardo attacks the near post, gets ball side of Carter Vickers. He's just about stood still. I think it's an absolutely terrible play. I don't like to pick on players of this level. He's reached a higher level as a player than I ever got 10% to, but that is a terrible and very costly play, and it's a shame because what a pivotal goal in the qualification picture now, right?
It was a rough moment just because you can see on the replay angle from behind the goal, he just gets a late start on it. He switches off for half a second, and it's enough for him. You see his legs try to propel him forward because he realizes he's been beaten, and it's too late. It was a bad moment for him. He struggled a little bit coming in, but I can see why he was brought in to be that physical presence on the back line. Tim Ream's getting a little bit on in age. Don't necessarily expect him to win those aerial duels. You've got Richard Steele with other stuff trying to be able to mark and clear those balls and get stuff out of there. You want Vickers to come in with a clean slate and just be that guy that can go shoulder to shoulder and expect to absorb some more of that physical punishment that Panama had indicated they were going to throw their way, the way they played this game. But yeah, it's really tough moment to get beat that badly in a game that you need to get something out of. And it wasn't the world's best attempt on target, but Stu, as someone who's been in the in between the posts like we both have, sometimes that's the tougher one. When it's in that close, your arms are stretched wide. Sometimes that's the hardest one, the most distance they've got to cover to try to come together in the blink of an eye to get something on it.
What are you going to say, Stu? As a man who was a fairly prolific indoor goal scorer,
that's right.
But you know, I don't have a problem with players getting beat. It happens.
It does.
I have a problem with players standing still while strikers sprint to very obvious areas of danger. Being slow-footed, it's a mental lapse for me. It's not getting beat.
It was.
Beat, your feet have to be moving, and he has to be moving faster. To me, it's a whole different thing. No messing around with Berhalter before they kick off. It seems defender reams out and Sargent's in.
Yeah.
And then there's a cynical red card from Karaskia.
Oh,
He knows exactly what he's doing. Pulisic is on the ball. He's driving, and he's thinking to himself, 2-2 draw, not good. 2-1 win, good. It's cynical. It's a foul. It is what it is. Like,
and I felt for Karaskia a little bit, Stu. Like you said, he played so well, and he clearly knows in this situation, you have to take this foul. You have to do this for your team and take what you're expecting is going to be a yellow card. But he gets it so late and so wrong and with so much force scything on the ankle. You know that he knows immediately by his reaction, holding his hand up. He's just realized he's committed a red card offense, and he's horrified.
Honestly, like, he's got lucky, but Pulisic shouldn't be getting himself sent off over it. You know, there's this, like, it's soft. Like, yes, it's quote unquote cheating, as all the Twitter's saying, but when you cheat and you get your red card, that is what it is. It's a game. You know, he's not hurt anybody. It's weird. It's throwing the punch. He's made a very cynical foul for very obvious reasons. Same thing a minute later.
The tactical foul, right?
Yeah.
Tactical.
Yeah, Farina on Robinson a minute later, and even Stuart Holton says, you know, you don't like it as an American fan, but it's a smart foul. But then there's one that's not clever for me. Gondola gets another yellow because it's open season now, for a foul on McKennie. But that was a bit stupider for me because McKennie's moving away from the goal. He's going towards the sideline, and you've gave actually a dangerous free kick away to a very good set play team. That's not the same as Pulisic driving at you centrally. It's not the same as Robinson driving in an overload. You'd actually won the initial encounter and you were sending McKennie to the sideline. There was no need to be giving that one away. So that's a red and 2 yellows that to me were very different. The red and the yellow, you can like it or not like it, but they're understandable. This last one's a bad decision and it's silly. But
this, though, for me, Stu, is why I think Bartone had a good game as the referee. Yes, you missed that early challenge that should have been a card on Turner. And if there is a card, I doubt Weah reacts the same way he does and gets the red card. So it's sort of like the original sin argument thing there. Besides the assassination, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the rest of the play? But for me, he did such a good job of taking the necessary steps. That was a red card, and that's a tough one to give on a guy who is the star player for one of the teams and a guy that dictates how his team plays. And he had no second thoughts about it. He saw it and was immediate to the pocket. And if anything for the U.S., like you said, they're lucky Pulisic stays in that one because you've already seen what VAR is looking for and was comfortable giving a red card to Weah for. You have to be smarter than that as the USA captain. You cannot react that way, despite how frustrating it is. And like some of the commentators were pointing out, that's the type of foul that can lead to a pretty bad injury if you get hit the wrong way.
I mean, here's the problem with me when you start getting involved in these macho nonsense and sticking your chest out and fighting. Like, are you remembering that we need a goal here and we need it really bad and we need it in like 2 minutes? Or are you getting your mind sucked away from the task at hand? And I'm projecting from his press conference, but if Berhalter's really come at this with the angle it seems he's come at it with, like, let's study the ref tendency, that itself is nonsense. Like, if you're going to play against a team like this, it should be an empowering perspective. It should be, okay, we're good at set plays. Let these clowns give us 10 free kicks around the box. They'll pay for it because we'll score 3 of them. You know, like, they kick you, they do it, they're doing that because they can't stay with you and you know it. Get them on a yellow and run at them again. But it doesn't seem like it's come from that kind of aggressive standpoint. It's like, oh, they're going to do this, they're just going to do this. And I think his team's got rattled under pressure by an inferior opponent personnel-wise. Because I do think, you know, they're under the hammer right now. I do think this USA team's a better team than Panama. I actually think it's a very good group. You're going to have to replace Ream before the World Cup, probably. I don't know how long he lasts. But you got turned over in a home tournament. And the referee might, your perspective towards the referee might have been a pretty critical factor in that.
Yeah, for me, the last thing to sum up from this game is the USA got done to them what they used to do to bigger teams on the international stage back in the 2000s and the late 90s. This was, all right, we're going to bring the physical game to you. We're going to see if we can get you to rise to the occasion, get away from playing your game and worry about the fouls and other nonsense. And then we've got good enough athletes that we're going to be able to create a decent number of chances, and we're just going to make sure that we finish a couple of those. And the U.S. got caught, and they did not adjust well to the red card. Red cards change games way more than goals do, but I still felt disappointed with the overall performance, that the USA was so negative in the second half with the ball while down a man. It felt like after the Balogun goal there was evidence to show that Panama was still potentially there to be taken at the back, that you could have put together a few more chances and scored. And in the second half, we only really got to see one scoring opportunity that they carved out for the entire 45 minutes.
Yeah. So sadly, I think Panama beats Bolivia.
They do. You expect it.
So that would leave USA needing victory against Uruguay.
That's right. Now, here's the interesting thing on the preview here for Uruguay. Stu, don't know if you saw the news here, but because of the issues Uruguay with having teams come out too late out of the locker room, no Bielsa to manage Uruguay for a game where they're not technically through yet. So they still have something to play for, with only two teams getting out of each group.
Is that the most home nation suspension of all time?
Possibly, but I feel like this actually came because of the response to the Argentina stuff. That, okay, we've got to set a precedent here. So if anything, it's maybe the neighbors to the Great White North, Canada, who raised the big stink about it, about teams trying to maybe play a little gamesmanship with coming out late to warm up. That maybe that's what causes this to happen. But it certainly makes it a little bit interesting of how is Uruguay going to look without the man who pulls the strings. And Stu, I know both of us are very big fans of the way that Mr. Bielsa manages his teams, whether it's international or at club level.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
For me, he's probably top 3 of my managers that I'd put in the world currently right now.
Yeah, I agree. And unlike the next bright, shiny new thing, this is a guy who's been there and done it for decades.
Oh, yeah.
And we are in an era where experience is significantly undervalued. This is going to be tough, man. There's this weird narrative going around that Darwin Núñez would be good if he just could score any goals. He scored 10 and 7. He's doing just fine. He's not Pepe. This is tough. This is as bad a scenario as I think you could have imagined coming in, short of being eliminated, going into the final group game. I think it swung on the red card, but such is the sport we love, that if they do get this win, what a historic moment it would be. I don't see how it can be done, Caleb.
They're going to have to get a little bit lucky. It's going to have to be Uruguay taking their foot off the offensive gas pedal a little bit to lead to some of those chances coming. I think that's going to have to happen. The other thing for me, though, is can you get back to playing your style of game? And I don't necessarily know that they're going to be able to shake off the discussion around a bad performance, sort of the negativity surrounding this team right now, the question marks. You don't know if you've got Turner in between the sticks yet. So while they have the talent, certainly, to go and beat a Uruguay, this would not be some monumental upset. They're not going to be favored, to me, even if they are playing a South American tournament on their home soil. And this is going to have to really show something of this generation. This is your chance to make a statement 2 years out from hosting your World Cup. Can you show that you can get it done in these scenarios where you might be facing something like this similarly down the line in 2026? Can they rise to the occasion right now?
They could cause problems from set players. Absolutely. Yeah. They could do that. But the way they struggled with Fajardo and his runs in behind, like he's like Walmart brand Núñez. Like it's you don't picture that matchup going well in your head.
No,
I don't.
So it's all these little things that you have to hope all break your way. And the other thing, of course, is Panama needs to have a good result against Bolivia. And now they don't have their main maestro who makes their entire team tick. Carrasquilla missing is not an insignificant thing for them. However, realistically, I don't think Bolivia is good enough to still offer much resistance to a Panama team that's shown that they're better than most people thought that they would be coming into this tournament. I think not many people would have put anyone other than USA and Uruguay advancing out of this group. And Panama has shown that, barring a monumental collapse of their own, they're going to have 6 points. They're going to have a very good goal differential. And the USA is going to have to better their result if they want to keep playing in this tournament.
Yeah, agreed. What's more likely, Caleb? Bolivia win or USA win?
I think it's more likely the USA wins than it is that Bolivia wins. But as we mentioned before, it may not even be enough. Even if they are able to turn Uruguay over 1-0, if Panama goes out and puts 5 goals in the back of the net, this is a moot point, right? So you're going to need some luck to break your way.
Somehow seems even worse.
That's right.
You
But
pulled it off and didn't get the reward for it.
But as someone who's watched the USA for so long, there's been so many situations like this where the USA has been able to get themselves out of the frying pan. You look at the 2009 Confederations Cup, boy, were they done, dusted, buried 6 feet under, and they somehow got an amazing last group game performance to get themselves through. Remember, if they don't get that miraculous result, they don't get that sort of generation-setting win against Spain that set things up prior to the 2010 World Cup. And there's also been moments like the 2002 World Cup where the USA, 2 amazing group games in the first 2 of that tournament. You beat Portugal, you tie South Korea, you're done. And they laid a horrifically bad 3-0 defeat at the hands of Poland that nothing for me is ever guaranteed with the USA in the 3rd game of a group stage in an international tournament. It's just going to have to be which squad turns up on the day. And the USA is more than capable of it. I'm going to be having my fingers and my toes crossed when I'm watching this one.
And Caleb, right now, nothing guaranteed is a very good thing. So let's see what happens, and we will be back after. So to round up, question of the day. Have you got one?
Yes. Oh, we love to have a little fun discussion. I thought favorite USA players last time was a little too standard, right? So in honor of what has been a bonkers Euros so far, with some of the great upsets we've seen, Georgia beating Portugal, them nearly took the lead against Spain today, by the way. I want to get top 5 upsets in cup competition. And to make it a little easier on you, Stuart, we're going to allow both international and club games into this mix. We're going to go down our list from 5 to 1. I want to hear your 5th.
So I'll say this about cup sets. Like the Georgia-Portugal doesn't count. Senegal beating France doesn't count. Cameroon beating Argentina in Italia 90 doesn't count. Because for me, a cup set has to end the other team's tournament.
Interesting.
Like Saudi Arabia beating Argentina last World Cup doesn't count. When they come back and they go through and you don't, yes, it's an upset, but the consequence of ending someone's tournament, the consequence of ending someone's season, that to me is all that qualifies for a cup set. So,
all right, that's fair.
You said Euros, England v Iceland. Yeah, there's one. That was miserable.
Number 5 on my list is Iceland versus England 2016. My goodness.
There's the whole consequence of it and the whole vibe around it. It's different to these, like Georgia v Portugal. Georgia beat Portugal. Awesome. Portugal's still going. Like when Spain won the World Cup in South Africa, they lost to Switzerland in the Open. But that England loss to Iceland is jarring. It is the last game of Hodgson's reign. It is, it ultimately led to Southgate getting hired via Allardyce becoming the only unbeaten manager ever. It was brutal. Other upsets
ended quite a few of the England national team players' careers as well. It was a generation defining loss. That was.
And honestly, Caleb, rightly so. Rightly so. I mean, there should be consequence. Portugal v Man Porto v
That's
Man
your
United.
number 4, Porto versus Man United. That's
Yeah,
a deep cut, Stuart. I like that.
Jose Mourinho. I'm just Googling now the scores because I remember the winning goal, but the actual way it happened, Porto won 2-1 in Portugal. So that was back in the away goals era.
Yeah.
And
so that I was going to say they tied on aggregate, but they still went through. But still, such a big win before Jose Mourinho was the special one.
They didn't tie. How it happened is it was a 2-1 win in Portugal. And then Man United were 1-0 up at Old Trafford. So it was going to be a tie, but Man U were going to go through on away goals. And then a free kick went to Tim Howard. He drops it. Benny McCarthy puts it in. And Jose Mourinho becomes Jose Mourinho because an interesting question, Caleb, would be if Mourinho did not do that and did not win the Champions League with Porto, where would he be right now? So again, pretty consequential game. Wrexham v Arsenal before.
Hang on. Before we get to number 3, I want to give you my number 4, and this is where I have to make a change because, as you've already mentioned, you don't think Senegal versus France 2002 counts. No. So, will you give me this one, Stu? A little bit tweaking the rules here, but I want Poland versus England 1973, not in the final tournament, but it still goes to your second role. It ended England's World Cup qualification bid. What a game that was. A 1-1 draw, but again, with needing to only get one team out of the group there, Poland moves on. They did not track the total shots on target back then. It was just total attempts. But Jan Tomaszewski, the goalkeeper for Poland that day, one of the all-time great goalkeeping performances. I looked it up earlier, so I know this here. 39 shots total from England. They won 23 corner kicks, and they only put one in the back of the net against just an unbelievable pretzel twisting yoga maneuver goalkeeping performance by him to deny them. So that'll be my replacement for Senegal France number 4.
Working TV for that game. In a preview, Brian Clough called the goalkeeper a clown.
That probably came back to bite him. Number 3 for you, Stu.
Wrexham v Arsenal, 1992, I think, before Wrexham was a documentary.
Yeah.
3rd or 4th tier team beating Premier League Arsenal. Wasn't even Premier League then, it was Division 1. Very famous Mickey Thomas free kick. That was a big deal. We talk about cup sets all the time, but teams that low beating powers, it's rarer than people think. It does happen, but that was a big one.
I've got a similar one, but much more recent. Give me 2015 League Cup Bradford City versus Chelsea. 4-2 win, 2-0 down at Stamford Bridge. And this is Chelsea at the time, leading in the Premier League. Yeah, they didn't play all of their stars, but it wasn't like it was a weak team. This is still Peter Cech in goal. You've got guys like Willian out there. Eden Hazard's brought on as a substitute, and it did not matter. Bradford City, the James Hansen boys, turn them over. Stephen Darby, fantastic performance in the back there. And Bradford City as a League One team goes through on a run all the way to the final. Did not win it. They lost to Swansea, which was itself an upset. But still, that for me just stands out as one of those modern day miracle cup set type games. Number 2 for you, Stu.
Number 2 is the League Cup semi-final in 2004, I believe it was. The Invincibles, as you like to call them, I do not recognize them as the Invincibles because that famous Arsenal team lost the League Cup semi-final to Middlesbrough Football Club. Thank you very much. Juninho Paulista with a goal at Highbury that was definitive. And Middlesbrough end the road of the Invincibles in the semi-finals of the League Cup, a tournament they would go on to win by disposing of Sam Allardyce's Bolton Wanderers in the final. Very, very biased. May have been the greatest performance of all time by any team.
Number 2 for me, Greece versus Portugal, 2004 Euros to win the tournament as the biggest dark horse winner of all time. So much has already been said about them. We'll move on. Let me get your number 1, Stu.
Wimbledon v Liverpool. For perspective for
Crazy Gang?
Yeah. For perspective for anyone young, this was a time there was a genuine debate if teams would rather win the league or the FA Cup. That used to happen in the late 80s. It was the magic of the knockout. It was TV didn't cover every game like it does now. So you'd be on the TV if you're FA Cup, the coverage was starting at 9 o'clock. It was the biggest deal going. And Wimbledon was a bunch of hoodlums who'd been promoted from the 4th tier to the 1st tier. And Liverpool was an invincible juggernaut. I don't know the numbers. They won everything. They were a giant. They won European Cups. Alan Hansen, John Barnsley, and Rush. And they were seen as unbeatable and certainly not beatable by little old Wimbledon. But Laurie Sanchez winning goal, 1-0. Anyone who is interested in their story, you could Google a documentary called The Crazy Gang. Just a really good story, like a violent version of Moneyball, in my eyes. The Wimbledon Crazy Gang.
For me, my number one, Stu, USA versus England, 1950 World Cup in Brazil. Part-time USA team with what is the greatest upset of all time in international soccer. And still to this day, USA handles their business against England in international tournaments. Stu, we've gone on way too long, my friend, here, but this was a lot of fun. And hopefully next time we talk, it'll be about a USA versus Uruguay victory.
Hopefully.